So we are about to show you the steps to burn in your new Torrid stove for the first time. This is a step that you want to do before you take your stove out into the backcountry. There's a couple reasons why. Number one, it'll burn off any like residue or any oils that have been left on the materials due to the manufacturing process. The other important thing is that when you burn your stove in, it's going to retain memory in the metal at that point, which makes the setup process in the field that much easier, especially with the stovepipe. The first time you do it, it's really hard to get the stovepipe nice and smooth without any permanent creases. So you want to do it at home in the yard, like where we're at, and just make sure you take your time, get the stovepipe really smooth, and then you go ahead and burn it in for about 30 minutes. That's about how much time it takes to burn that memory into all the materials. So we've got the stove assembled already. We're gonna put that in the teepee. Then we're gonna unroll the stovepipe and show you how to roll it in the pipe configuration before you burn it in for the first time. The first thing you're gonna wanna do, it comes in the stove carrying case with the flue connector around it. The flex wall panel is also around it. So when you set it up for the first time, it's gonna kind of wanna unroll naturally for you. You're just gonna unroll it all the way. And then you're gonna begin the process. The way that I like to do it that first time is you're not gonna try to bend it over on itself perpendicular to the way that it's unrolled. That'll actually create those permanent creases. So you're gonna start at one corner and kind of roll it at an angle. And then once it's all rolled up, you'll just twist it a little bit and it'll naturally straighten itself out with the stovepipe rings that are gonna be put on it during the process. So it takes a little bit of effort to do it that way by yourself. If you have two people, sometimes you can do it a lot easier, but once you kind of just work it around after you've got it kind of rolled up at an angle, it eventually will just straighten itself out. And you'll see that there's no creases really in the stovepipe at all, which is what you're trying to prevent that first time that you burn it in. So now that we've got the stovepipe assembled, we can insert it into the teepee and connect it to the stove. So two tips before you burn your stove in for the first time. Number one, if you don't want to have fingerprints on your burned in stove, you need to wipe it down with alcohol wipes, or just wear some latex gloves the first time you assemble it, so that you're not getting fingerprints all over it. They will stay in the metal once you burn it in for the first time. And so if you want to avoid that, make sure that either you wipe them off or you're wearing gloves. The second thing is that you do not want to over tighten your stove. As the material warms and it burns in that memory, if you have it overly tightened, it could cause the material to warp a little bit. So you just want to have it assembled without over tightening it before you burn it in for the first time. Okay, so I know this is a burning your stove in for the first time video, but a couple of quick things when you're starting your stove as well. Just a few tips when you're starting fires in stoves. Number one, you just want to make sure that all the air control valves are fully open, that the damper spark arrestor is all the way in. That's going to allow maximum airflow. A lot of people use several different fire starters. Today I'm just going to use some pyro putty and a lighter. There's all kinds of different fire starters you can use, but what's important is, just like when you're starting any fire, you're going to start small with little twigs and get those going, and then you're going to build your way up with thicker and thicker pieces of wood until you've got kind of these inch and a half diameter branches that you're using. You can even get bigger than that, so that like if at the end of the night you want to put a 3 or 4 inch round branch in there to just slow burn through the night, you can do that as well. Today we've got just the little twigs up to about that inch in diameter branch that we're going to be using. I like to just prop the door open with one of the larger pieces of wood when you're trying to get things going, just so that the door stays wide open for you. You're just going to get that pyro putty going and place that in the back of your stove. You want that kind of going right up the flue of the stove. And then you're just going to start feeding in little twigs on top of that. And I don't know if you can see on the video or not, but you'll just see that that fire is really just already drafting almost straight up that flue. One of the great things about the design of this stove, that trapezoidal design, is that it really wants to funnel that fire right up the flue. So once you have your stove going and you know that you can put in some of these larger pieces of wood without it going out on you, you're going to want to put in, I don't know, 4 or 5 of these 1 inch diameter size pieces of wood, and then close the door and just let it burn for about 30 minutes. You can check it every once in a while just to see how it's doing, but you really need to burn your stove for about 30 minutes to really get it fully burned in. So it's been a little more than 30 minutes and we're pretty much finishing the process now. You can see the coloration on the stove has totally changed. One of the really cool things about titanium is the way that it reacts to heat. It gets all these really cool blues and purples and just swirls and lots of cool colors. So at this point, we're gonna let the wood that's in there just kind of burn out, let the stove cool off. It's good to make sure you let it cool all the way. You don't use water or anything to cool it off before it's ready. Just let it cool down all the way, and then take the stove apart, pack it up, and you'll be ready for your next backcountry adventure.